Hello, Rob Pipkins. How are you today?
Hi, Hannah. I'm doing great.
Good. It's good to see you. I've talked with you on the phone many times since I met you at a party over Labor Day weekend last year. And you became my financial advisor, which is exciting. And it's not necessarily because I didn't like my previous financial advisor. I did, but things were shifting for me. So I decided to go in a slightly different direction. And part of it, I think, was because when I talked with you, I could just feel, this is something that I call attunement, that you could that you cared about me, you were concerned about me, and that you were going to be meticulous in your attention to detail when it came to my finances. Um, it's not that that's not true of people I've worked with in the past. It's just that there was just a sense of attunement that felt really, I want to say nurturing. Tell me where that comes from in you. Why are you like that?
Oh, that's a good question because if I was going to make a list of my positive attributes, I probably wouldn't have put nurturing down. Um, but if I think a little bit more deeply about it, I do have memories of I'm 4 years older than my sister, so I do have memories when I was younger, helping her with gymnastics. She would eventually go on to be better at gymnastics than myself, but there was a time being older than her, I knew more of the moves sooner. So I remember helping her with that, and it kind of felt natural. It wasn't something she had to beg me for. Um, and then, of course, as being a parent of three kids, they're adults now, but when they were younger, I definitely enjoyed teaching them, whatever they seemed like they were ready to absorb. Before I met you, I had a career as you could call it as a personal trainer. I ended up having a much higher role. I was a vice president of the personal training department for a gym chain. Um, but at the foundation, I was a personal trainer. And so that again was kind of helping people get the most out of themselves, kind of get to the next level for them. And very often, the most satisfaction I got out of the job was I typically would help them get to a level that's beyond what they thought was possible. Um, and so that was one of my favorite things to experience myself was to see someone in the gym or someone specifically that I was helping in the gym get a new personal record. Squatting more than they ever did before or bench press or something like that. So that was I would almost feel like I I got the sense I was as excited or more excited than them when they achieved a certain milestone. Um, and so about 5 years ago, I made the switch to finance, being a financial advisor. And it's not the same rush. You're not really helping people get a PR, but there is a certain satisfaction that comes along with knowing that you've helped someone in a way that they are significantly better off in a life-changing way. Uh, Not every single thing I do financial is a life-changing thing, but it's a significant portion of my job that I am helping people make life-changing decisions in a positive way. So I guess overall, without even realizing it, without intending to be nurturing, there is definitely that dimension to my life.
What and I've told you this many times before, but one of the things that has been so helpful for me because the past year or so of my life was very intense in ways that I could not have predicted. Um, as someone who has done a lot of trauma-focused therapy, as a therapist, which I'm not practicing that right now, and I'm like adjusting my screen a little bit. I, you are not freaked out by my weird trauma. And I think part of it is because you've been through some pretty serious crap yourself. I mean, also, you talked about teaching your sister gymnastics, but you are a famous athlete in the eyes of at least Wikipedia. I mean, like You have to correct me if I'm wrong, but the first black man to represent the United States at the Winter Olympics. I mean, that's legendary.
Well,
Is that
I
true?
don't know.
Or the first to
That's
met?
probably not that's probably not true. So, just to be complete, so I was a member of the 92 and the 94 Winter Olympic team, representing the US in the sport of luge. So for sure, I was the first black person, um, either to do luge at all or certainly to achieve that level, in luge. So I could say I was the first and I think the only black person to
Okay.
have been in the Olympics for
Okay.
luge. As
Got it.
far as the Winter Olympic itself, that's that's definitely not true. That's
Yeah,
definitely
okay.
not true.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Now, you also experienced, from what Wikipedia teaches us, a hate crime at that ended up being kind of an international kerfuffle, to use an adorable word. I'm sure it wasn't adorable for you.
Yes, I have to search my memory. I'm pretty sure it was leading up to the 94 Olympics. So I want to say in the area of 1993. This was not super long after the unification, a few years, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, um, and the unification of Germany. So you have at the time you had, well, prior to the collapse of the Soviet Union, you had East Germany and West Germany as two completely different countries. 1993, you still were kind of referring to it as Eastern Germany and Western Germany. So
Mm-hmm.
I was in Eastern Germany uh, during the time of the unification, and the country. I wouldn't say the country. I wouldn't describe the country as being in turmoil at that time, but they were definitely in a transition. Is probably a more appropriate word. And just like anywhere else in the world, progress doesn't bring everyone along. And so when you have pockets of any area that are economically depressed, it creates uh, a breeding ground for young people to be influenced. Um, and so they had a skinhead population there. Searching back my memory, I was 19, 20, maybe 20. Um, Not the most, well, I was a world traveler, but I wasn't necessarily so enlightened to all the different things in the world. And so, long story short, I didn't have my guard up perhaps as much as I should have,
Okay.
and was not quite, it wasn't quite, what wouldn't be the same as purposely and knowingly going into a quote unquote bad neighborhood. You know, there was no conscious awareness that I was in a region or an area that I needed to be extra careful about.
Hmm.
Uh, but a long story short, I was the youngest one of the youngest people on the team at the time. So thankfully, I was surrounded by people a little more savvy, and despite the fact that they were not black, they still were a little bit more sophisticated and savvy as to things going on. And not to rehash the specific incident, but to kind of summarize it, um, it started with one skinhead um, being in a bar and us not really thinking anything of it. And then maybe a half hour later, 50 going on 100 people were coming into the bar, 100 skinheads. And my teammates were cognizant enough to say, we need to get the hell out of here. And before shit hit the fan, pardon my French, we were leaving. And that's when all hell broke loose. And one of my teammates actually ended up getting severely beaten, for lack of a better word. And but I, luckily, with the help of my teammates, was already to safety. And
I'm
so
glad to hear.
it ended up being uh I mean, I was traveling, focused on my sport, so I don't really know how the rest of the world saw it. Um, but there was a lot of the luge community, the Europeans, sort of to have a complete economic, a full economic picture or full economic plan for their training. Many of the coaches and the athletes are officially in the police force of their respective countries. And
Right, that makes.
so a lot of the uh, senior athletes and coaches, they basically they had people they knew to call.
Hmm.
And so they made some phone calls and military and police came and, took care of the situation. And that town was not the same for a long time because of it. Um, the
Hmm.
bar actually ended up closing down, changing hands, and um, so yeah, it was a major event at the time. There ended up being a court case where my teammate actually went and testified, and so but luckily I physically directly um, was not uh, I did not bear the brunt of how bad it could have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear more about the story. I'll admit, like, I had, you know, seen like I read a little bit of your Wikipedia page just because I don't remember how it came up when we were at
Mhm.
the party and I met you. I was like, well,
Well, it's
that's kind
normal
of
to
the
meet
story.
people and just Google them and see
Yeah.
what comes up. It's
Well,
kind of normal
exactly,
these days.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, but I hadn't read the whole thing. And like, it was on a cold, very painful day. You know that I'm rehabilitating a spinal injury. Like, very cold, painful day that was like adjacent to MLK Day that I was like reading more of your Wikipedia page. And then I got really angry and cried really hard about anything bad ever having happened to you. And I knew that it was a long time ago for you, but I'm like, maybe we need to update your Wikipedia page because that was a while ago. I am always curious when someone has a trauma of whatever sort, um, in what ways that kind of recalibrates who you are. Like, do you think it recalibrated you at all, or not really? Was it just kind of a thing that happened and you moved right through it?
Well, well, to be clear, I didn't feel traumatized.
Okay.
Um, but as it's happening and unfolding, I kind of feel like I dodged a bullet, so to speak. I feel like in my head I might describe it as a close call.
Hmm.
Uh, but my teammate did actually get get assaulted. So in a way, it was more than just a close call. For me specifically, it was a close call. Um, yeah. So at the time, my memory's a little foggy because it was like 30 years ago.
Hmm.
Uh, but I'm pretty sure it was a few months before the '94 Olympics.
Hmm.
So it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't quite uh, done that, but I was pretty much in the zone. I was in a tunnel. So it was going to take a lot more than that to kind of bring me out of that tunnel.
Hmm.
It was more something that you kind of reflect on 6 months later or a year later, you know. It might be like because you're more like in the art world, creative world. Um, think of it, think of a high school student, um, uh, Juilliard, right? That's like a top school to go to, right?
Sure. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's postgraduate. That's after high school or that's for high school.
They definitely do like programming in high school, but I believe it's specifically after.
Right. Yeah. So
They don't
imagine
do
you're,
earlier. Yeah.
yeah. So imagine you're an art person and you're in
Hmm.
high school and you're trying to get into that school.
Hmm.
So whatever stretch of months that you have to prepare and for interviews and your portfolio and all that stuff. So that level of intensity, but just as it applies to sports, would be where I was at when this happened. So it was more like, yeah, gotta, brush it
Mhm.
off. I don't have time to deal with this, or
Mhm.
um, and just sort of keep moving forward and not lose focus.
Yeah. I am always curious because my athletic training as a child, like I didn't think of myself as an athlete at all because I never learned to throw and catch things. Like it was when I was in my early mid 20s that I started actually like practicing frisbee so that I wouldn't like flinch when someone tried to throw keys in my direction. And but I grew up dancing. I grew up moving constantly. And as I became and cartwheels for sure, um my cartwheels, I perfected my cartwheel partly um to dance in communist Europe right after the fall of the Berlin Wall. So this is one of the wonderings that I always have is the ways in which entering international spaces makes a person a little more sensitive to what real poverty or what real life experience looks like from different angles. And so that's one stream, international travel. Another question that I have has to do more with like the psychology of being I mean, luge is a very intense focus for an individual, right? Like, and you had a team, you had people around you, and you were all rooting for each other to some extent while also hoping that you yourself would be top, right? So
Yeah,
I'm,
that's
I'm always
accurate
curious,
assessment.
speak to that, like the ways in which early experiences of whatever because you talk about being able to focus in and like kind of push outside the distractions.
Hmm.
I'm definitely someone who can be all over the place, as you know, just from talking to me on the phone, but also I can hyper focus. Like, how do you describe, like, talk about that for yourself?
Well, the earlier part of your question, as it relates to being on a team in an individual sport. So it's very different. Well, I don't know if it's very different, but it is different than, say, a basketball team or a football team. So you're all competing together and you have to work together. Um, and it's different. We're an individual sport, and so we share coaches, but the level that we work together, it varies depending on which two people you're talking about and how close you are to a major competition. And, so if you're in a football or basketball team, for sure, there's cutoffs, there's cuts, there's starters, so you are still competing with your teammates because to be a starter versus, second string. But we are 100% competing with our teammates. Okay, not the females, because it's male female division. So we're not competing against the females, but any males on my team, more or less, they're competitors. So it's anyone who follows Formula One car racing. There's 10 teams now, 11 teams, and each team has two drivers. Each driver's number one job is to beat their teammate. That's how your value rises.
Okay.
You're not competing with the people in a different car because, well, how much difference is the car making? When you're both in the same car, well,
Mm-hmm.
now it's a direct comparison.
Oh,
And
and
so you really know how good you are if you're beating the other guy in the exact same car.
okay. I was
And
not familiar. I
right,
don't follow car racing, so that's very
right.
interesting.
But
Mm-hmm.
it's similar to track and field, the individual sport, or
Mm-hmm.
swimming. It's an individual sport. The clock doesn't lie. You
Mm-hmm.
swim in the pool, whether you're swimming by yourself, you're swimming with someone else, the
Mm-hmm.
clock doesn't lie.
Mm-hmm.
And so in luge, we basically were trying to be the best in the world, but you got to be the best on your team first.
Right, right,
Otherwise, you don't get in the airplane.
right, right.
And for a time, I was the top three for for a few years. Yeah.
What was the feeling of that like? Was it euphoric or was it constant competition and intensity or both?
I felt like I was in the right place at the right time doing what I was meant to do.
I love
So
that.
there's a certain sense of peace, I
Hmm.
think. Uh, Euphoria, I don't think that was, I don't think that's the word. Although there was definitely, I have tons and tons of positive memories and positive experiences and no regrets. But euphoria wouldn't quite be the right word. Sense of accomplishment, sense of achievement. Um, my mindset during it. I'm sure during if it was even possible to go back and search your brain as if you're there, I probably felt uh, not content, like I had like I had a mission, I had a goal, like
Yeah.
I was working
Yeah.
on something. So
Yeah.
definitely that was definitely the overwhelming feeling. Um, so yeah, definitely not euphoria. More like more like a mess that you signed up for.
Yeah.
More like a like climbing Mount Everest. Like someone who climbs Mount, and I've never met someone who climbed Mount Everest, but I
Hmm.
can imagine uh, that before, during, and while you're at the peak, uh, you know, huge sense of huge sense of accomplishment. Uh, but when you're in the middle, it takes months and months to, you know, and it takes months and months to get up there. In addition to just the preparation to be at the level that it's even an option for you, that whole journey, it it's certainly not easy.
Hmm.
So it's like, how do you describe doing something that's not easy, but you wouldn't change anything? Maybe the way a mother feels at the hospital when she's about to deliver. So you signed up for this, more or less. More or less, you signed up for it, and you're all in. It's what you want, um, but it's not easy.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you are a father and a husband and you have three children. So I like that you're able to make that like that that parallel of like life experience because you watched that experience a few times after having
Mhm.
your own experience. I'm I'm curious about I'm very curious about eustress, EU stress, because I'm somebody who has gone through a lot of interesting physical and psychological traumas over my lifetime. And I choose to believe that each one of them makes me like a more finely tuned instrument in the hands of, I don't know, spirit, divinity, the universe, whatever you want to call it. Like, I am someone who feels a lot, like high empathy meter, but also somebody who trusts that my feelingness is part of how I heal. And so it's not like a problem to feel so much. I just have to learn how to manage that. In what ways, like, are you highly empathic, or is your sense of being around other people not so much based in feeling alongside them as like observing and then strategizing with them?
Well, if you ask my wife, I have no empathy whatsoever for anybody.
Interesting. Okay.
Um, but when you so something you said reminded me of something my coaches always said was whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Hmm.
Um, so I sort of have that sort of mindset um, for myself, and I sort of
Okay.
give that as advice to some people when it seems appropriate. Um, but you mentioned the word, you said IU stress, EU stress.
You stress, just
You
like
you said a
like
phrase.
I spelled it just because not everyone has heard
Yeah,
that
you
term.
said a
Like,
phrase that I wasn't familiar with, so I just
yeah,
wanted you
yeah.
to
I mean,
elaborate.
okay. So the EU is the European Union, but in this case, it's
Ah,
also
okay,
like a prefix to the word stress. Like,
okay,
eustress, good stress
okay.
is I mean, as I rehabilitate my spinal injury, I've also been moving. And there have been a lot of times when I'm like, oh crap, I should not be carrying this thing that weighs 60 pounds that normally is no big deal for me to move a little ways. But or well, 60 pounds is probably usually depending on the size of it, it's something for me to move. But like, I work out like usually, but there have been a number of times, especially in the winter with the cold, where I'm moving something heavy and all of a sudden I'm like, uh-oh, either my bones are going to get stronger or I'm actually making my injury a little worse right now.
Mhm.
I know now that there's nothing broken in my feet. So that's a good thing. But, still I need scans and what I wonder about because I like to say what doesn't kill you, well, it didn't kill you. Hopefully, you use it to make yourself stronger. Maybe it makes you a little more special in a way too, but I never like to assume that someone wants to hear that kind of talk from me. Now that comes from my world in therapy, but generally speaking, people who have the mindset, and there's like a book called Mindset, right? Of like, I'm going to use this, it's going to make me stronger, it's going to make me more efficacious in whatever I'm going to do next. That mindset is really, really helpful. Tell me, is that something that was cultivated in you growing up? You grew up in the Bronx, Long Island?
Staten Island, Staten Island, New York
Staten
City. You're close. Yeah.
Island. Yeah, I know somewhere around there.
Although people from New York City that are not from Staten Island would say I wasn't growing up in New York City.
Okay. I don't think I've
Um,
technically been to Staten Island, but
yeah.
maybe I'll go sometime to try to understand the differentiation.
Yes, it's more like New Jersey. It's more green. I used to ride the ponies across the street from the mall when I was growing up. It was very very country.
Okay.
Not
Okay.
now it's more like Brooklyn, but when I was growing up, it was more country.
Okay.
Uh,
Nice.
so, but just so I understand your question, you're basically asking me how do I deal with stress
Well,
or not?
how does mindset
Mhm.
impact your capacity to deal with stress?
Okay, so you'd have to categorize me as like a type A personality.
Okay.
um, and a wannabe overachiever. I say that because in some ways I am overachiever, and then in other ways there's things I haven't achieved that I set out to do.
Okay.
Um, but you'd have to categorize me uh, as a type A personality and all the pros and cons that typically you associate with a type A personality. So my mindset uh, is very in line with the phrase "what doesn't kill you makes you stronger."
Hmm.
So that kind of resonates with me. Clearly, I didn't make that phrase up, but it clearly resonates with me, and I I feel that if you set certain goals, you set certain bar for yourself and certain goals for yourself. A lot of times you only know enough information that it seems realistic, or maybe not so realistic, but possible. So
Hmm.
you set goals for yourself that seem possible, knowing that you don't know everything and knowing that things are going to come up that you're going to have to deal with. And I approach it from a certain level of confidence that I may not see all the answers now, but I will be able to resolve it, or address it or deal with it. Um, so um, Yeah, I'm trying to think of so another thing about me is the luge, right? So the type of person who could do luge, if I had to take everyone that I've ever met, all my teammates, all my competitors, some of them I knew very well, some of them not so well, just more like acquaintances. I'd say a thing that we all have in common isn't necessarily what you would think. You would say, oh, we're all daredevils and adrenaline junkies and crazy. I would say that's actually not true. Um,
Hmm.
but what is true is that we're able to stay very calm or relatively calm in situations that most people would be losing. And so I'm sure I have a certain level of stress or challenges that if they were piled up on me all at once, that at some point I would panic. But I I've never panicked about anything in my life to this day. So and I've been through a lot. So it's I just no matter what happens, I'm just like, okay, well, let's sit down and just look at first things first. And I just break things down. There's different ways that you could break things down. There's things that are urgent, things that are important but not urgent. So you kind of compartmentalize things and how you need to address them. And then sometimes you have to admit that you're going to have to give up, the expression, the good is the enemy of the best. That's something that resonates with me and that I use as a compass.
Hmm.
And so I'm very good of letting things go
Hmm.
that maybe at once time seemed important, but it's now getting in the way of something that's more important. And so I'm able to, um, so to speak, just do what I need to do and not be emotional. I mean, okay, emotion drives you. Okay, you don't set goals without emotion. So you may have goals. Emotion for sure is gonna, play, where you want to live, what kind of job you want to have. That's not purely, you know, uh, left brain type stuff. So, but that said, you can't, my personal opinion is that you can't let emotion get in the way of the things that are really, really important to you.
I feel very similarly. And I think that's another aspect of why I was like, let me go ahead and switch to working with Rob, partly because I was at a very vulnerable space when I met you, and you could read that that was true without like talking to me in a way that felt at all patronizing. And that was helpful because I had already had to like take money out of savings, and I was feeling like everything was kind of falling apart for reasons that I couldn't fully understand. And a lot of it wasn't my fault, but sometimes, as you know, things happen and you're just kind of sailing somehow, coasting.
Yeah, I
And
really actually only, sorry to cut you off. I actually really just picked up that you were in transition of some sort.
okay, see, this is good.
I picked up that you were in transition
Hmm.
and that maybe you could use some help sorting things out. That's really all I
Okay.
picked up on.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure when I met you, um, I wasn't sure if it would be a personal relationship or if my job might be of help to you. I really didn't know you were just some person at a party that I met like with a bunch of other people, and you just seem
Yeah.
um like not, how can I say, like in transition, like things weren't, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had barely slept for a week when I met you, and I was so relieved to just be getting to a friend's house, mutual friends, and like like spending a couple nights at their space because it felt like a neutral location where I could just actually sleep without like the various voices that were giving me their opinions on my life chiming in too loudly. And um it was interesting to meet, I mean, a number of really wonderful people at that party. It was also like the end of the summer. The vibe was cool. And I think part of what was pleasant about talking to you was just we were talking about I think I talked about how I was a yoga teacher, that I had done that from time to time. We were suddenly talking like athletes, and that felt like old familiar territory. I didn't know at that time that I had a spinal injury. I knew I was in pain and that it was hard to sleep. But there were so many aspects of my internal experience that I was masking outwardly. And that's something that I kind of learned about myself more in the past year is that often people don't perceive what's going on the inside in like because I'm maybe a little better at masking. Are you someone who kind of masks what's really going on the inside? I mean, we all do to some extent.
Yeah, well, in a way, I'd say I am good at compartmentalizing. So I kind of feel like there's a time and a place to deal with certain things, and um, you wouldn't necessarily know that if I'm going through something uh, difficult or challenging, I wouldn't necessarily wear it on my face, or I wouldn't necessarily change my schedule, uh, so you could say I sort of like keep it on the inside in that context,
Hmm.
but I'm also not one to necessarily keep it a secret if the right time and the right place came up where, it's appropriate um, to discuss or even maybe even get help or
Yeah.
opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't keep everything completely all inside, but it's
Mhm.
definitely not going to spill out when it's not the right time and place.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I feel that that's generally true of me, but the past year there were some exceptions to that rule, and we don't need to get into that in this conversation. I can laugh about it kind of now, but what I'm curious, because we're going to start getting toward the end of this conversation, because we said we'd aim for about a half an hour, and you've been very generous with your time. I have plenty of young people that I'm friends with, and one of them, my friend Vincent Schmidt, Vinny, he is an Olympic level athlete. He's a runner, and when I DM'd him a while ago on social media about like, oh, I might get to talk to Rob Pipkins, he was like, oh my gosh, so cool, right? And he and I will see each other eventually. Um, we don't know each other super well. There's just like some crossover in terms of the
The
spaces that
connection. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but I also know like everybody, especially, in their teens and 20s, is very ambitious in certain ways. And I don't say very ambitious. Like you and I both, high ambition people. Some people are a little more chill or maybe have like a quiet ambition that they're keeping close to their chest because they just don't want anyone to know. But for somebody who is like working with the energy of like having a desire that hasn't yet come to fruition, um, from your perspective as someone who has had a lot of cool successes and also some traumatic moments, some really hard stuff come up. What is one thing you would want to say to somebody who is in that young space, like prefrontal cortex not yet fully formed, like in that space of early 20s or late teens? What is one solid piece other than, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger?
Um, well, first I'd like to comment on what you said just now. The ambition, it's got nothing to do with age. It's got
Okay.
absolutely no, yeah,
Yeah, I
I mean,
agree.
that's my observation and my experience. Uh, it has nothing to do with age. And I also have a feeling that uh, it can't be taught. Uh, you either have it or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Not the success. I'm saying the ambition.
Mm-hmm.
The success can be taught, but there's, how can I say, there's people who, in general, go through large stretches of time where there is nothing that they feel like completing the sentence. This is actually a sentence I've said to you before. I was like, if there's nothing else you do in the next blah, blah, blah period of time, what is it going to be? So there's people that walk through most of their life and they don't have that answer or that phrase in their head. So I remember when I went to college, if I did nothing else, I was going to graduate on time. There was absolutely nothing. and I'm just going back to my mindset at the time. My mindset at the time, it was a 5 year engineering program, which um, was a challenge just in general. Most of the freshmen dropped out of the major. So when I set the goal that not only am I going to graduate, I'm going to graduate on time. That was a major goal because at the same time I was doing luge. So for me to go to the Olympics twice and still graduate on time in that window, it was a it was a major commitment and a major goal. And I just remember my mindset was like, there's nothing that's going to stop me from doing this. And I had that mentally in my head. It didn't come down to like I was suited for what I was doing. And so I ended up being successful without having to, no, it definitely wasn't easy, but I didn't have to do anything drastic.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have
Mm-hmm.
if I had, I would have.
Okay.
I would have, I had a motorcycle. I had two motorcycles in college.
Oh wow.
I would have sold them i- if I needed to.
Okay.
There was a time when, that was the time when I was dating my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and she had a grandmother who died, who she
Mm-hmm.
was close to,
Oh
and I
wow.
was becoming close to her, and she really wanted me to go to the funeral.
Okay.
And I wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
but there was no practical way for me to be there
Oh.
without majorly sacrificing me making the Olympic team. Just the
Oh.
timing of it. Yeah, the
Yeah.
timing of it and where I was and where the funeral was. I would
Mm-hmm.
have had to turn everything upside down to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something, I don't even think she's really that upset about it, but it was something that for me, I had to make a very deliberate, conscious choice that was not easy.
Yeah.
It was probably
Yeah.
more difficult for me to make the choice than my wife realized. Um,
Yeah.
but
Huh.
there are, so there's certain types of people, and it has nothing to do with age.
Yeah.
It's that they are not gonna, like, if you say to someone, "Oh, I have an opening, a prized opening in this program, but you're gonna have to move to Italy to take advantage of this."
Mm-hmm.
There are two kinds of people that say, "Okay, here's the money for the flight. Give me the dates. Give me the dates in the hotel, and I'll be there." And
Yeah.
there's other
Yeah.
people that are like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna be able to do it."
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, I guess this is a long way of answering the question. So that the young, the 20-year-old you're saying, okay, what advice would I give? If they are already ambitious, they've already made up their mind that there's nothing that's going to get in their way.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's already, you have to move here, you have to pay this, you have to sell this.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are going to be, they're not even going to be sacrifices. So
Mm-hmm.
someone who's already made up their mind, someone who's
Mm-hmm.
really ambitious and they're already made up their mind, like my boss right now, my boss at New York Life, um, he had um, an opportunity came up and it requires him taking his young kids out of school and taking his wife and moving to a different part in the state, like not driving distance. I mean, well, it's driving distance, but like he's not going to be using the same restaurants and the same cleaners and the same, like he's moving.
Right. Right.
It's the same state, but he's
Mm-hmm.
completely moving. He's switching his kids to a different school to take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of his opportunity. And so what
Mm-hmm.
that tells me, he's committed to his career. He's going to take this career as far as he can take it, and he's not going to let anything get in his way.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so I tell, if I tell a young person, I'm not the type to just give advice to someone I don't know. I usually try to give advice on what appears to be their weakest card. So I don't give advice on their strong card, right? I'm asking them for advice on their strong card, right?
Right. Right.
So if I come across someone who's motivated, I'm not even going to talk to them about motivation because they have
Mm-hmm.
that. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
talk to them about something they appear to be lacking, like listening to older people, learn from other people's mistakes instead of your own. That might
Mm-hmm.
be typically appropriate for someone in their 20s.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
learn from
yeah.
other people, get a mentor. You know, I try to listen to other people, but
Mhm.
I can't say I had quote unquote a specific mentor for specific things at specific times,
Right.
which I feel certainly would have been helpful. And maybe
Mhm.
that's me. Maybe they were there and I didn't see them
Mhm.
for what they potentially were at the time. Maybe it's a less a reflection on other people. The world didn't give me a mentor. You know, I don't think that's necessarily how it works. You know, maybe I wasn't looking for one hard enough.
Hmm.
Um, but uh, but I did have influential people, coaches and teachers. So
Yeah.
it's
I
not
mean,
a mentor, but a composite of mini mentors, I guess.
yeah. I mean, in the world of therapy speak, we talk about vicarious trauma, but I really believe the whole world is kind of vicariously traumatized, partly by the word trauma at this point. Like, it almost doesn't have a meaning to me. That's because I've been, talking about it a lot for a fairly long time. Um, I also think that the way in which you talk about, mentors and finding them. Like, I like to think more about like Emil Durkheim, who I believe was a sociologist, talks about collective effervescence and how that fuels a lot of people. Like going to church where the music is great, going to a Bruce Springsteen concert, or I bought myself a couple tickets to go see Lupe Fiasco in New York. And I'm like, I'll see you at some point for coffee. Rob, should you come to Lupe Fiasco? Do you care enough? And you were like, no, I really don't know his music well enough. Find someone else who likes him. And I was like, oh my God, Rob Pipkins. My heart hurts for you. Please start listening to him. But also, I appreciated that you were just like, yeah, don't waste that ticket on me. And I'm like, I know a lot of musicians in New York. I'm easily going to find someone who values this. Um, and like, because I'm a music educator and that's a big part of my training, but also I'm a songwriter and I'm finally going to like monetize some of what I've written. Like, I know that there are ways in which I keep a lot of my creative process very on the down low. Like I I can, talk extemporaneously easily. I've taught improv for bazillions of years, is how it feels. I've been doing it since I was a very small person. And I'm going to try stand-up comedy soon for fun as like a side gig. Not, don't worry. Don't worry, Rob. It won't be my main gig. I loved that. I loved that on the phone a week ago. I was like, I'm going to get my ASCAP license. And you were like, Hannah, you're going to get a job. And I swear to God, I'm working on it, Rob. Can I ask you, because I know that one way in which I can present as weak or something is that I'm a little woo-woo and I'm a little creative, and I can present as very scattered, while on the inside, I feel highly intuitive. Do you think you're intuitive? And or is it much more logical and like, spreadsheets, bits and pieces, or is there like an intuitive aspect to it for you?
Oh, I think I'm one of the rare people that I have the right and the left side of my brains working uh, at the same time. So
Okay.
so I am very creative
Hmm.
without being very artistic, if that's
Okay.
so. So my creativity manifests itself more in engineering type things, like problem solving,
Yeah. Yeah.
as opposed to. So a lot of times when you think of art, you think of expression. So
Hmm.
music and theater,
Hmm.
the heavy forms of expression.
Hmm.
But the type of creativity that I have is more in problem solving creativity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
We
so
need that too as a
yeah,
species.
yeah. So I'm not clueless. Like I can actually look at something and draw and it looks like it. So I do have some basic rudimentary artistic ability. But
Okay.
I usually only use it so that I can draw my ideas and my problem solving. I have little inventions, ideas that I scribble on pages
Okay.
and write them down. And then I have, in business, when I'm doing financial planning for
Mm.
people. It definitely requires some degree of creativity because there's more than one way to skin a cat. And so
Yeah.
you have to look at all the options and integrate it with what's possible and people's risk tolerance and their personal, predispositions. And you have to kind of combine that all together to have a solution that's going to work. And you have to be creative because you have to define what success is. So sometimes success, it's like a car. There's no one perfect car
Right.
because there's so many slightly different needs and slightly different roles that a
Yeah.
car fills in people's lives.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and so when you're making one or selling one, you have
Mhm.
to use a certain level of empathy because you need to understand the problem that this car is going to solve for someone. And so my creative side isn't so much in the traditional art world. But yeah, if you really want to get me to like drop everything, like if you say, hey, they're having a zip line from the Empire State Building, you want to come? I'd be like, I'm there.
Okay. So that should be a thing at some point. I
Yeah.
also, hearing you talk about your creativity has now I have a book that I'm going to order for you. So that I know and you'll like it, even if you don't read very often, because it's a good one to dip in and out of. So I have a thought of a thing that I am bringing you when I come to New York in June. And I want to thank you for going overtime to have this
Oh
conversation
yeah, no
today.
problem.
I think
No
it
problem.
will be something that provides some thought-provoking conversation. I'll make sure that I send it to Vinny. And I'm just grateful to know you as a human because you, without naming the book, talked about a book called the Seven Habits of Highly
Oh
Effective
yeah,
People.
yeah.
Yeah,
By Covey, I forget
by
his first
Covey.
name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Stephen Covey, I believe. But
yeah,
but like
yeah.
that's a book that I read.
I've read that many times.
Yeah,
And
it's a
he
classic
has
book.
another
I've
book, Beyond the Seven Habits, but he has one, First Things First. That's
Yes,
actually
yes.
my favorite book, one of my favorite
Yeah,
books.
yeah. And I like the way that book is a good thing for a lot of people who maybe do I call the way I am more spiralic. Like everything goes out, like the aperture goes very wide and I'm like taking in tons of stuff and then I need to focus in. So I like the ways you've been able to help me with that, especially since I've been dealing with a lot of physical pain and a lot of intense emotion, and it just has not phased you at all. So, thank you for being a phenomenal human while also being a wonderful financial advisor. We're going to do a quick
Thank you.
rapid fire. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Before we do rapid fire, I just
Yeah.
want to comment on something you said earlier about uh, communal effervescence. Uh,
Collective effervescence.
yes. uh, so it's just really timely with what's going on in the world right now. I just want to just put in my 2 cents to whoever's listening. The problem is that people naturally, I don't know if it's natural or unnatural, but people tend to first figure out, is this person on my team or not?
Hmm.
And then make their decisions. And so if you first decide that no matter who the person is that you encounter or is the subject of your thoughts or discussion or decision, that they are on your team,
Hmm.
and then you make your decision, the world is a better place. Because if you ask yourself, who's on my team? Okay, well, what's the definition of someone on your team? They look like you, they talk like you, they're the same age as you, same language, same street, same neighborhood, same country. What exactly do they have to be your family member, not so where do we draw the line
Mm-hmm.
as to someone being on your team or not?
Mm-hmm.
And if people stop trying to decide who's on what side, a lot of problems become solvable. A lot of problems disappear and the
Yeah.
problems that still remain become solvable.
Yes. I think that's, I mean, spoken like a true human. I mean, you and I can joke,
Citizen of the world.
citizen of the world.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I I know that one of the ways to change the energy of a situation is to start using the word we instead
Yeah,
of I. And
yeah.
like I try
I mean,
not
there's
to think
nothing
like,
wrong with I, but I
yeah,
understand what you're saying is kind of like what I'm
yes.
saying for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And this is part of why there's a difference. I've told clients in therapy in the past, if you think you're a narcissist, don't worry, you're not one. But there's nothing wrong with liking the way you look in the mirror. Like there we can parse out and separate like what is going on with you and how intense your feeling is from like giving you a specific label that feels painful and stigmatizing or you don't have to like go down the rabbit hole unless you feel like being a bunny today. Like when you say there's more than one way to skin a cat, I'm like, I would always prefer to say there's more than one way to cuddle a cat because I like cats for cuddling. I'm not Rob Pipkins. Are you skinning cats? Like what kind of weird like what are
Uh,
you doing in your free time?
I
But
didn't make it up.
I know. But it's what I believe in reworking the language of something. What is one thing you wish people would stop saying on the planet right now?
Are we doing rapid fire now?
Yeah,
Is
we're
this the
doing rapid
beginning of
fire.
rapid
Yeah.
fire?
Yeah. What one thing you're kind of done hearing people say?
Uh, you see, I wish I could prepare for this one, but that's too woke.
That's too woke. Okay, you don't want to hear people say that's too woke. Okay, fair. Um, what is one thing you wish more people would just do naturally or like as an automated choice?
Healthier lifestyle
Okay. What is something that surprises you with delight on the regular?
surprises me with delight on
Yeah.
the regular.
Yeah.
It's not regular enough, but random acts of kindness.
Yeah.
If you look, you can see that.
Yes, I love that. Okay. Okay, cool. If you were a song, what song would you be?
If I were a song, what song would I be? These are tough. These are like take home homework questions. These aren't rapid fire questions. If I was
Okay.
a song, no, I'm gonna answer it. That's fine.
Okay.
If I was a song, uh, so I don't know. I gotta think. I know the song in my head. Um, Killing in the Name of
Who is that by?
Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, wow.
They are one of my all-time favorite groups, and that
Okay.
is one of their most powerful songs.
I like them as a group. It's a very powerful energy that they have. It's a good pump you up energy, right? That particular song, I feel like I'm going to have to look up now.
You have to, it's one of their, well, I mean, it's not like they have a ton of songs, but it's one of their more popular songs and it resonates. Well, you know, all of their, so they're not love songs. They're all anti-establishment songs. So it's definitely an anti-establishment song.
Yeah. Today is the new moon. Do you enact any rituals on the new moon?
I'd have to say no because you just informed me of something I didn't know.
Okay, that's good to know. Well,
I'm not in
I
tune
have
with the moon.
I
Although I
have
am very excited about the successful Artemis 2 launch and mission.
okay,
I am
good.
excited about that. I follow
Good.
that.
I'm glad
Yes.
you're excited. And now I want to talk about Artemis the Hunter, but I told you it would be rapid fire and we can't digress.
Okay.
Final question, and this is specifically because it is the month of April, Poetry Month. What is your favorite poem or who is your favorite poet?
See, this is where you're tapping into my lack that gene that you
Uh-huh.
have, that there's a gene you have that skipped me.
I mean,
So
we're not related.
no, well, no, we are related.
Well,
Just
all the
way
humans are
back,
related.
just way back, way back.
That's true. Way back. True
We
story.
definitely have a common ancestor.
Okay.
Uh,
True.
but I I don't read poetry,
Okay.
although I have read poetry, but I
Uh-huh.
don't read poetry enough to have a particular poem in mind. In fact,
Okay.
I'm kind of drawing a blank on that.
Okay. Then I might have to bring you like what I've got too much poetry in my life. You're getting some poems as well.
I did read a poem. So
Hmm.
I'm on the finance committee at my church, and
Hmm.
every time we meet, someone takes a turn reading a poem.
Okay.
And I did find and read a poem. And
Okay.
it was about Renee Good, but it was written by Renee Good was a poet,
Okay.
and the poem was written about her.
Okay.
So I don't have the name, I don't have it memorized, but that was the last poem uh, that moved me.
Okay.
Mhm.
I hope that you will send me like the link to this poem later.
Yeah, I
And
will.
I am
I
going
could find
to,
it in 2 minutes and I'll send it to you. Yeah.
okay, amazing. I am going to close with a snippet of poetry. All right.
Okay.
Because
Mhm.
this is one of my favorite poems of all time. And we have Poem in Your Pocket Day coming up on the 30th. I do believe that we all are an energy of presence that can be poetic if we're paying attention. So writing a poem.
I'm like the dumb jock that just cleans up well.
It's not true. Okay, so one of my favorite snippets of poetry comes and now I'm you distracted me in a delightful way and now I'm like now I want to do something different. I'm gonna improv poetry for you, Rob, okay? If the color of blue was your shirt and also the scarf over there and the ocean, river, no. You are not a color, Rob Pipkins. You are an energy of care that knows how to work with the minute and the masculine in a way that feels true. It's not really a poem yet, but there's something there. I might work with it.
That's good. Well, if you really want to make your brain fry, turn it into a haiku.
Oh, haiku are easy because you have
Oh,
to
okay.
get them short. I might
Okay.
try to write you as a haiku. That would be fun. I could do that on the train
To
ride
me,
down
they
to
just
New York
make things way
again.
more difficult, trying to make it fit into this rigid format.
Well, I have a lot of poets in my life, and I have written poetry that I'm proud of. What I just gave you there was something random that was largely based on the fact that your blue shirt is distinctive in this, and it has
No,
been.
you did a good
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
It
Well,
seemed
what I like is meeting somebody who thinks very differently than me, but makes me think a little differently. And there is an attunement and also a sense of greater potential in the collaboration. So thank you for being a collaborator who has made my life feel more sane. And also for the ways in which you're doing that for the people all around you that some of which I'm sure you'll never see exactly how you made a difference.
Mhm. That's true. All right. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having
You're
me.
welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm gonna turn off the recording.